Good morning. It's Tuesday, December 13th. And this morning I want to talk about a case that's coming up before the Supreme Court. This is a case that involves state legislatures and the drawing up of the election maps. That's what I'll call it. And the case is Moore versus Harper. It's an extraordinary lawsuit that the Supreme Court has considered in oral arguments. And this is a case that is based upon the actions that took place in 2021 in North Carolina. The North Carolina lawmakers redrew their congressional maps. The state had 13 districts at the time, and the voters in the state were evenly distributed between Democrats and Republicans. But the Republicans who are in control of the North Carolina's state legislature didn't want fair maps. They wanted power. And one of the most outrageous gerrymanders in the nation, they drew 10 seats intended to favor themselves. Now that caused the North Carolina courts to take action. And a panel of 3 trial judges found that in the 2021 maps, they were intentionally and carefully designed to maximize the Republican advantage. And they were so much twisted in that way that the Republicans would win a majority no matter what the Democrats did. And the Democrats had more votes in the state. So the North Carolina State Supreme Court struck down the maps, finding they violated the North Carolina Constitutions, which guaranteed free elections, free speech, free assembly, and equal protection. And that should have been the end of it. You have a state court applying a state constitution to strike down a state law. But the North Carolina Republican lawmakers appealed, arguing that the U.S. Constitution does not give state courts authority to rule on their congressional maps. Even though the state legislature had passed a law authorizing the courts to review the redistricting plans like these. So here we have a state that has a set of laws, and the lawmakers in the state violate their own set of laws, and then when their state courts turn them down and tell them they were wrong, what do? They get themselves together and they sue, and they're going to this crummy Supreme Court right now because they have a good chance of winning this case in this severely right-wing Supreme Court that exists in this country right now. And in fact, 3 of the justices on the Supreme Court have already said things like, it looks to me like this is okay. It looks to me like North Carolina can do that. Now, we know in this country that there's gerrymandering going on. There has always been gerrymandering. We also know that in this country, only about 10% of the seats that are available to be elected are really in contention for anything. Most of the seats in this country, the congressional seats and other seats, are predetermined almost before they start. Because we've been gerrymandering for a long, long time. So why is this case so important? Because in this case, if North Carolina wins this case, it will set all of the state legislatures in this country on a path to maintain whatever power they have. Now, if you look at the makeup of this country, and we've talked about this many times in the past, there are many more Democrats in this country than there are Republicans. But the Republicans still control a majority of the state legislatures. Because in the smaller states, the Republicans have more power than the Democrats. The Democrats are concentrated in the major cities around the country. And that means that the Democrats have a lot of votes, but they're concentrated in the smaller areas of this country. And so we don't have an equal distribution in this country of Republicans and Democrats. We have an unequal distribution in this country. And that is why we have minority rule, essentially. That is why the Republicans have so much power, because they rule many, many state legislatures. And so this case, if it goes forward and it goes to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court rules in favor of the North Carolina state legislature, then there will be no controlling of the way election districts are set up in states. It will mean that there can never be a fair election in this country. Because if they allow the state legislatures to draw the maps that they want to draw with no oversight, then they will always be unequal. They'll be unequal on both sides. You think that the Republicans are going to be the only ones to take advantage of this particular law? The Democrats, where they have enough people, and where there are Democratic states, they will do the same thing. So we will find ourselves in a mess, a political mess. And we will find ourselves without the best man for the job. Because if we allow people to do this, we will not get the best man for the job every time. There will be cases when the best man is a Democrat or the best man is a Republican, but they will not have a chance. They will not have a chance. This country cannot afford to have a constitution-free zone within the states where they have no oversight, where nobody's looking over their shoulder. Not the governor, not the courts, not the voters. If we have state legislatures that are running uncontrolled, this country will go downhill faster than it's going downhill right now. So this case, Moore versus Harper, which doesn't sound like such an exciting case at all, is critical to the democratic nature of this country. And we cannot afford to have a Supreme Court ruling that states' legislatures control all the voting in this country, because that would be the end of our so-called democratic system. So I leave you with that this morning, and I'll see you tomorrow.